Hi, welcome back to Mama's Got a Brand New Bag. Today, we're talking about a word that gets thrown around a lot in the GI world, but it isn't always explained very well: motility. You may have heard your provider say your symptoms might be related to a motility issue, or you might have Googled it at 2 a.m. and thought, cool, cool, cool. I don't know what that word means. Well, today I'm going to do my very best to explain it to you. We're going to talk about what motility is, what happens when it doesn't work the way that it should, and how we test it. Because here's the thing, motility issues are incredibly common and incredibly misunderstood. First thing first, at its simplest, motility means movement. In the GI world, it refers to how food, liquid, and waste move through your digestive tract, from your esophagus all the way to the exit. The GI tract is essentially one long muscular tube, and those muscles are constantly doing coordinated contractions to move things downward toward the exit. This movement is called peristalsis, and it's a wave-like motion that pushes food along. When everything is working well, food moves at the right speed, nutrients are absorbed properly, and waste exits predictably. But when motility is off, things can either move too slow, too fast, or not in coordination, and that's when symptoms show up. What happens when this doesn't work like it should? Well, motility disorders are not one size fits all. They exist on a spectrum. When food moves too slowly, this is delayed motility. Food hangs out longer than it should, and this can lead to symptoms like nausea, bloating, constipation, or feeling full even after a small meal. A classic example is gastroparesis, when the stomach empties too slowly. When food moves too quickly, this is rapid motility. Food moves through the system too fast, and this can cause diarrhea, cramping, urgency, and poor absorption. This can happen with conditions like IBS diarrhea. Sometimes you can experience disorganized and uncoordinated motility, where the muscles just aren't working together properly. Think a traffic four-way stop, but no stoplights. This can cause difficulty swallowing, constipation despite normal speed, and pelvic floor dysfunction. Here's a few common conditions that you may have heard of. Gastroparesis, delayed stomach emptying. This is common in diabetes, post-viral illness, or idiopathic, meaning it doesn't have a clear cause. This can present with symptoms like nausea, vomiting, and feeling full quickly. Chronic constipation, slow transit or outlet dysfunction. Either the colon moves too slowly or the pelvic floor doesn't coordinate to have a bowel movement effectively. Irritable bowel syndrome, motility plus gut-brain interaction. This can be IBS-C, constipation, IBS-D, diarrhea, or IBS-M, mixed. Esophageal motility disorders, achalasia, difficulty moving food from the esophagus into the stomach. But how do we test for motility issues? Well, this is where things get interesting, because motility isn't something that you can see on an endoscopy. You need to use functional tests. So some examples are a gastric emptying study. You eat a small meal that has a nuclear tracer in it, often eggs or oatmeal, and imaging tracks how quickly that meal leaves the stomach. The result is based on what percentage remains in the stomach after certain time frames after consumption. Esophageal manometry measures pressures and coordination within the esophagus and helps to diagnose conditions like achalasia. This is notorious for being a very unpleasant test, though I've never experienced it myself. Anal rectal manometry evaluates pelvic floor function and rectal muscle tone, and this is used for constipation or fecal incontinence. There's also something called a SITS marker study, where you swallow a capsule that has little markers that glow on an X-ray, and I can see where they move throughout the colon in a few days. Motility issues are often dismissed, misunderstood, or labeled as just IBS without a deeper evaluation. But for patients, these symptoms are real and they can be life-altering. But there's always a nuance with GI care, and here it is. Motility disorders often overlap with inflammatory conditions, surgical history, nervous system regulation, stress, and the gut-brain axis. So it's rarely just one thing. If there's something that you take away from today, it's this. Motility is about movement, and movement matters. When things aren't moving the way that they should be, your body will let you know. And if you've ever felt like your symptoms just don't quite fit the box, ask your provider if motility could be playing a piece in this puzzle for you. If this episode helped you, share it with someone who you've heard say, I feel full after 3 bites and I don't know why. Because chances are they've heard the word motility too. And now, thanks to me, you can explain it. In future episodes, we'll continue exploring life with chronic illness, ostomy care, and the shared space between patients and providers. If you have burning questions that you'd like me to answer on a podcast, please send them my way. However you found this podcast and whatever convinced you to stay, I'm really glad you're here. Bye.